In the past 15 years or so, working as a freelancer and running my own video production company, I've personally and through the company have spent a lot of money on gear, probably close to $250,000 worth of camera and filmmaking gear. So I wanted to make a video to talk about some of the gear, actually 5 pieces of gear, that made me the most money in that time. So in freelancing, that comes in rental fees when you show up with a kit, with a gear kit. So that's your camera, your lens, your lights, your audio, whatever the case may be. That's how you make money with it that way as a freelancer. And through my video production companies, we'll often build in the cost of providing the gear to do the project. And the reason why I know how some gear has been profitable and how some other gear has not been profitable is because I keep very clear track on how this all works. Just internally, we have a document where basically, let's say I went out as a freelancer for $600, including a camera. Internally, I would know, hey, maybe 500 of that was for my time, for my labor, $50 an hour times 10 hours. But then 100 of it would be allocated towards this camera, for example. So then at the end of the year, I could tally up, hey, did this camera pay for itself yet? How much does it have to go? Even if you buy a camera outright, you got to have the math to figure out, did this pay for itself? Was it a good investment? This is how I kind of figure out what to buy and when to buy it over the past few years. And just to be clear, it does not work all the time. Here is an example of a camera that I bought back in 2019 that actually has not paid for itself yet. It's not even close actually, because I just don't take it on jobs and we don't put it out in production. It's not because it's a bad camera, it's just for the type of work we do. It's not the best camera that we have access to. So we have a ton of cameras. This one is just not one of the best ones, so it hasn't made its money back. So the first piece of gear that's made me money now for 12 straight years is this piece of gear. This is made by Canon. It's a lens 24-105 focal length, and it's a f4, and it has image stabilizer built into it. This is the absolute workhorse. Now, I didn't even buy this lens by itself. I bought it with my or maybe the second camera I ever owned, the Canon 5D Mark II, and this was kind of a bundle package. So at the time, I think it was maybe around $800, which is still pretty much around the same price if you buy it by itself, around $1,000. But this literally works on every single project. And even though I don't really use Canon cameras anymore, this was designed for a Canon with an EF mount. It works with my other cameras as well. Like this Blackmagic, if I put it on here, I bought an EF mount because I have a lot of EF mount lenses. And a lot of our productions, we use Canon lenses. The Sony, I bought the same exact one, but the Sony brand, 24-105 f4 image stabilizer. This is the Sony one. But this also, like what I'm shooting with right there, that's a Sony camera, but it's using one of these on top of that. Just because you could get these metal bone adapters that takes a Canon lens and puts it on a Sony camera. So this worked on my Canon cameras, my Sony cameras, my Blackmagic cameras. I've put this on Aries, I've put this on Red. Red also could have an EF mount. So regardless of what camera you invest in, the lens is very critical. It's something you have to buy anyway. But if you buy a good enough lens, it could last you for a long time. I bought some cheap lenses when I was starting out, and I don't use them anymore. They either broke or they just weren't doing the job. This is very versatile. 24-105 range in any camera body gets you so many different options, and the image stabilizer just makes your handheld stuff look really good. I think we have like 4 or 5 of these now, and we have some Sony versions of them, and I think we have a Sigma or 2, but that focal length is really the sweet spot as long as it has image stabilizer. It's a perfect starter lens. The second piece of gear was a decent tripod that had a fluid head. I made a mistake of buying cheap tripods to start with, like $100, $150 tripods in the beginning, and they just don't pan and tilt smoothly at all, and you can't really get a good shot. So around the $400 or $500 range is where I really found good or decent enough tripods, especially Manfrotto makes really affordable tripods that are very fluid, and that could get you started. Eventually we got Sockler, $5,000, $7,000 tripods, but this tripod lasted me a good 10 years, and I pretty much just use it for YouTube. The third thing is audio, and it's this wireless lavalier mic. It's what I'm wearing right now. This is a different set. But when I first started, I bought the one that's called G2. This is a G3. The newer one is called G4. But I've had, I think, the G2 now going on almost 15 years. It was one of the first things I bought. And these, again, run for like $500-$600. But when you're starting out, when you're doing everything on your own, when you're doing sound, you just lob up someone, right? This could work from anything from a wedding to a corporate shoot to a commercial. You just loft someone up and you get good quality sound. This is basically what this loft sounds like right now. This room is my new office and it sounds pretty echoey, so I'm working on sound treatment on that. But it's still one of the mics I use to this day. I use it on jobs. When you step up your level of video production, typically you hire a sound guy, you don't have to worry about that. But I use this for so many jobs for so many years. And again, it doesn't matter if I had the G2 or the G3 or the G4. They all worked out throughout the year. Some of them just got beat up and old, so I don't really use the G2 anymore. But the G3 and G4 have lasted me so many years. And then this is something, again, I bought multiple sets as we grew the company and I needed more gear. So out of everything I've mentioned so far, I think this one has made the most amount of money. This is what's called a client monitor typically when you're on a shoot. So even on the smaller level shoots, I still take this on the job. It's a 17-inch. Now this one is pretty old. I think I got this one maybe in 2008, but we bought a few ever since I bought this one. This one works as the B cam, but this one has newer versions obviously, and on every set that is more than one person typically, you may see one of these or a newer version of one of these. But basically the reason why this makes so much money, because not only does every set need it, it typically rents out as a separate item when I show up to a shoot. So typically this may rent out for $100. So in a course of a 3-day shoot, you make $300. And these, even brand new, were no more than $2,000. So you can make the money back and then it's all profit from there. And this one is actually really old, so it doesn't even have HDMI. It has SDI. So all I did was I got a decent quality SDI cable. This is a 25-footer. I bought a 50-footer, and then I bought a nice roller stand. And that's basically the package. I also bought a Pelican case that this goes in so it's protected. But this really took a beating over the years. This fell on concrete like twice and doesn't really have even a scratch on it, even from being dropped on concrete. So this thing is a beast. Any version of this that is available, I'll try to put some links in the description to either the things that are available now, the upgraded version of what I'm showing you, or some things that are still relevant to this day, like the lens or the lavalier mic. Then there's lighting. So lighting used to be pretty safe. Some of my first investments were in lighting and they worked for a long time. But at some point they transitioned to LED, and I think they're gonna be with LED for a long time. So I think an LED light could be a really good investment. And I initially started with LEDs that were exactly the same lights, but the first model of this, maybe like 10 years ago they came out. They were called Litepanel 1x1. This is the same, much brighter version of that. Basically, this is called a Litepanel Astra 1x1, and they make a Gemini one that has RGB. Basically, you could get colors out of it. This is daylight and tungsten. This is an absolute beast. It takes a battery too, so I have an Anton Bauer battery plate for it, so I could power it with battery, and it's super, super powerful. So this kit basically has 2 of those lights in it, and it has 2 chimeras, basically just a softbox that you could use. It works for interviews. It works for like so many different situations. I have one lighting me here as well, and I have some in the studio downstairs, but they are probably one of my favorite things because I could show up with just this kit with 2 stands, and I could light interviews, I could light tabletops, I could do a lot with just these 2 lights, and they're small, they're portable. But I think investment in any lights, especially LED lighting nowadays, could last for a very long time, and it could be something that could make you a substantial amount of money. In an upcoming video, I want to break down kind of my thinking process behind how to really properly pick a camera that could last you a long time as well. So I have the perfect starter camera coming in next week, so I think it'd be a perfect opportunity to make that video. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.